Welcome back. In part 1, we covered how bread changed. The wheat got restructured, the ingredients got industrialized, and what was once simple food became a chemical experiment. But there's one more piece to this puzzle, and it might be the most important one. Because even if you had perfect wheat, milled perfectly, you'd still have a problem. Flour, even good flour from good wheat, isn't automatically digestible. It has to be transformed, broken down, pre-digested by time, heat, and microbial action before your body can fully use it. Medieval bakers understood this, not scientifically maybe, but empirically, through generations of trial, error, and observation. They knew that bread made slowly worked better than bread made fast. And they were right. Let's start with milling. Traditional mills used stone. 2 large circular stones, one stationary, one rotating, ground grain between them, slowly. The process took time and it generated very little heat. That mattered. Whole wheat contains oils in the germ. Those oils are fragile. Heat destroys them. When they oxidize, they turn rancid. When they're preserved, they carry fat-soluble vitamins, E, K, essential fatty acids into your body. Stone milling kept those oils intact. It also kept the bran, the outer fiber layer, integrated with the flour. You didn't get white starch separated from dark fiber. You got the whole grain, ground fine enough to bake, but nutritionally complete. Modern milling is different. Roller mills were introduced in the late 1800s, steel rollers spinning at high speed. They're fast, efficient. They can process tons of wheat per hour, but they generate heat, a lot of it. That heat destroys the oils in the germ. It oxidizes nutrients. It breaks down enzymes that help digestion. Worse, roller mills are designed to separate. The bran goes one direction, the germ another. What's left is pure endosperm, white, shelf-stable, nutritionally stripped starch. You can add the bran back later and call it whole wheat flour, but it's not the same. The structural integrity is gone. The oils are rancid or removed. The living enzymes are dead. You're working with a reassembled product, not a whole food.
But even whole grain flour, real whole grain, stone milled, isn't enough by itself. Because raw flour contains things your body can't easily process. Phytates, for example. These are compounds that bind to minerals, iron, zinc, magnesium, calcium, and prevent absorption. They're sometimes called anti-nutrients, not because they're toxic, but because they block your body from using what's in the food. Lectins are another. These are proteins that resist digestion and can irritate the gut lining if consumed in large amounts. And then there's gluten itself. Even in ancient wheat, gluten proteins are complex and tough to break down. Medieval bakers didn't have words for these compounds, but they had a solution: fermentation. Bread dough was mixed and left to rise, not for an hour, for 12 hours, sometimes 24. During that time, wild yeast and bacteria, naturally present in the air and the flour, colonized the dough. They fed on the sugars and starches. They produced acids, enzymes, and carbon dioxide. And in the process, they broke things down. The bacteria produced phytase, an enzyme that degrades phytates. Minerals became bioavailable. The acids reduced lectins. The long fermentation partially digested the gluten proteins, breaking them into smaller, easier to process fragments. By the time the dough went into the oven, it had been transformed. It wasn't just flour and water anymore. It was pre-digested food. This is why sourdough bread, real sourdough fermented for 12 to 24 hours, behaves differently in your body than industrial bread. It releases glucose more slowly. The glycemic response is lower. You don't get the sharp insulin spike and subsequent crash. It's easier on your gut. The gluten has been partially broken down. The irritants have been reduced.
and it delivers more nutrition. The minerals are accessible, the vitamins are preserved. Medieval bakers weren't trying to optimize nutrition, they were trying to make bread that didn't spoil, tasted good, and kept people fed. But the methods they used, stone milling, long fermentation, whole grain integrity, aligned with human digestion in ways that modern shortcuts don't. Now, compare that to industrial bread. Modern dough is mixed and baked in under 2 hours. There's no time for fermentation, no microbial breakdown, no enzyme activity. To get the dough to rise quickly, manufacturers add commercial yeast in large quantities. They add sugar to feed the yeast. They add dough conditioners to speed gluten development. The result is bread that looks risen, but it hasn't been fermented. It hasn't been transformed. You're eating raw starch and intact gluten proteins with all the phytates and lectins still present. Your body has to do all the work that fermentation used to do, and for many people, it can't. This is the hidden cost of speed. Industrial bread is faster to make, cheaper to produce, more profitable to sell, but it skips the step that made bread digestible in the first place: time. Not because time adds anything, but because time allows transformation. It allows bacteria and enzymes to do what your stomach alone can't. Medieval bakers didn't rush bread because they couldn't afford to. Their survival depended on food that worked. We can afford to rush it, but we pay the price in other ways. Here's what you need to understand. Bread isn't just ingredients, it's process. The wheat matters, the milling matters, but fermentation might matter most of all. Because even perfect wheat milled perfectly will still contain compounds your body struggles with, unless those compounds are broken down before you eat them. And that requires time, patience, microbial action. It requires the knowledge that food isn't inert, it's alive, and making it digestible means working with biology, not around it. So what happens when you skip all of this? When you eat bread made from modern wheat, roller milled into stripped flour, mixed with additives and baked in under 2 hours, what does that do inside your body, meal after meal, day after day, year after year? That's not a hypothetical question. We have the data, and it's not subtle. Eat a slice of white bread. Within 15 minutes, your blood sugar will spike higher than if you'd eaten a tablespoon of pure sugar. That's not an exaggeration. White bread has a glycemic index of 75. Table sugar is 65. You're not eating slow-release energy. You're eating fast-digesting starch that hits your bloodstream like a glucose injection. And your body notices. Here's what happens inside you. Your blood sugar shoots up. Your pancreas detects the spike and floods your system with insulin. Insulin's job is to pull glucose out of your blood and store it, either as glycogen in muscles or as fat. For about an hour, you feel energized, alert, maybe even satisfied. Then the insulin does its job too well. Your blood sugar crashes. You feel hungry again, tired, irritable, craving more carbs to bring your energy back up. So you eat again. Another slice of bread, another spike, another crash. This is the blood sugar roller coaster. And if you're eating modern bread multiple times a day, toast for breakfast, a sandwich for lunch, dinner rolls at night, you're riding it constantly. Your body wasn't designed for this. For most of human history, rapid blood sugar spikes were rare. Fruit in season, maybe, honey occasionally, but not every meal, not multiple times a day. Your insulin response evolved to handle occasional surges, not chronic bombardment. When you force it to work overtime, day after day, year after year, it starts to break down. Your cells become resistant to insulin. Your pancreas has to produce more and more to get the same effect. Eventually, it can't keep up. That's type 2 diabetes. And it's not a coincidence that diabetes rates exploded in the same decades that industrial bread became the norm. In 1960, fewer than 1% of American adults had diabetes. Today, it's over 10%. Another 35% have prediabetes. Bread isn't the only cause, but it's a major one.
Now let's talk about gluten. Not gluten sensitivity as a vague complaint, gluten as a biochemical reality. Modern wheat gluten contains a protein fragment called the 33-mer peptide. It's a chain of 33 amino acids that your digestive enzymes can't break down. Most proteins get cleaved into smaller pieces in your stomach and intestines. The 33-mer doesn't. It arrives at your gut lining intact. For people with celiac disease, this triggers a full immune attack. The body treats the 33-mer as a foreign invader. It inflames the gut lining, damages the villi, tiny absorption structures, and causes malabsorption, pain, and long-term harm. But you don't need celiac to react. Even in people without diagnosed gluten disorders, the 33-mer can trigger low-grade inflammation. Your immune system recognizes it as something that shouldn't be there. It mounts a response. Not severe enough to cause obvious symptoms, but chronic enough to cause damage over time.
And then there's glyphosate. Glyphosate is the active ingredient in Roundup, the most widely used herbicide in the world. It's sprayed on wheat fields, not to kill weeds during growth, but right before harvest. This is called desiccation. Spraying the crop with glyphosate dries it out faster, making it easier to harvest and process. The problem? Glyphosate doesn't just disappear. It's absorbed into the grain. Residue testing has found glyphosate in bread, cereals, pasta, and crackers, not in trace amounts, in measurable, consistent quantities. Glyphosate disrupts your gut microbiome. It kills beneficial bacteria the same way it kills plants, by blocking an enzyme pathway they need to survive. Your gut bacteria help digest food, produce vitamins, regulate your immune system, and protect against harmful pathogens. When glyphosate damages that population, your digestion suffers, your immune function weakens, inflammation increases. Now combine all of this. You're eating bread that spikes your blood sugar, floods your system with insulin, and trains your body towards metabolic dysfunction. You're consuming gluten proteins that resist digestion and provoke immune reactions. You're ingesting pesticide residues that disrupt your microbiome. And you're doing this multiple times a day for years. Is it any wonder that autoimmune diseases, digestive disorders, and metabolic syndromes have skyrocketed? Celiac disease has quadrupled since 1950. Crohn's disease and ulcerative colitis have doubled. Non-celiac gluten sensitivity, once considered psychosomatic, is now recognized as a legitimate condition affecting millions. Obesity rates have tripled. Type 2 diabetes is epidemic. Metabolic syndrome affects nearly a third of adults in developed countries. These aren't separate problems. They're connected. And the common thread is food that your body doesn't recognize. Food that's been stripped, altered, sped up, and chemically treated until it barely resembles what it used to be. Here's the part that should make you angry. You're not broken. Your body isn't defective because it can't handle modern bread. Your immune system isn't overreacting. Your metabolism isn't weak. You're responding normally to abnormal food. Medieval peasants ate 2 to 3 pounds of bread a day and didn't get diabetes, not because they had better genes, because they had better bread. Bread made from whole grain, stone-milled, fermented for hours, free of pesticides, preservatives, and industrial shortcuts. Their bread worked with their biology. Yours works against it. So what do? You can't go back to 1324. You can't undo the Green Revolution or reverse industrial food production, but you can make different choices. Because the bread that built civilizations, real bread made the old way, still exists. It's not common, it's not cheap, it's not on every supermarket shelf, but it's out there. And understanding what it is, why it works, and how to find it, that's the final piece. In 2013, researchers in Italy ran a study. They took people with diagnosed non-celiac gluten sensitivity, people who couldn't eat modern wheat without symptoms, and fed them bread made from ancient grain, einkorn, the oldest cultivated wheat. 14 chromosomes, simple gluten structure. The participants ate it daily for 6 weeks. No digestive issues, no bloating, no fatigue, no inflammatory markers. The same people who couldn't tolerate a slice of supermarket bread had no problem with einkorn. Their bodies weren't broken. The wheat they'd been eating was just too far removed from what their biology recognized as food. This isn't an isolated finding. Studies on emmer, spelt, and other heritage grains show similar results: lower glycemic responses, reduced immune activation, better digestibility. Not because these grains are magic, because they're closer to what wheat used to be before we optimized it into something our guts can't handle. The takeaway is simple. Bread can still be food, but not the bread most people are eating. So what are your options? You have 3 paths forward, and none of them require you to give up bread entirely. First, seek out heritage grains. Einkorn, emmer, spelt, and Khorasan wheat are all commercially available. They're not common, but they exist. Small mills and specialty bakeries are bringing them back. These grains have simpler gluten structures. They're lower on the glycemic index. They contain more minerals and antioxidants than modern wheat. If you've struggled with wheat in the past, heritage grains are worth trying. Many people who react to modern bread tolerate these without issue. You won't find them at every grocery store, but they're online, at farmers markets, at bakeries that prioritize ingredients over convenience. Second, prioritize real fermentation. If you're going to eat bread made from modern wheat, make sure it's been fermented properly. Real sourdough, not the kind with sourdough flavor added, not the 2-hour industrial version. Bread that's been fermented for 12 to 24 hours with a live starter culture. This matters because fermentation does what your stomach can't. It breaks down gluten. It reduces phytates. It lowers the glycemic response. A true sourdough loaf made from whole grain flour and fermented overnight is biochemically different from a factory loaf. Your body will respond differently. Ask your baker how long the dough ferments. If they don't know, find a different baker. The third point is understand the trade-offs and choose accordingly. Maybe you don't have access to heritage grains. Maybe you can't afford artisan sourdough. That's fine. You can still make better decisions. Choose whole grain over white. Choose bread with 5 ingredients over bread with 25. Avoid anything with high fructose corn syrup, hydrogenated oils, or unpronounceable chemicals. Read the labels. If the ingredient list looks like a chemistry experiment, put it back. And reduce frequency. You don't need bread at every meal. Medieval laborers ate massive quantities because they burned massive calories. You probably don't. Treat bread like what it should be. Real food, consumed intentionally, not filler eaten mindlessly 3 times a day. Here's the harder truth. Industrial food systems will not fix this for you. There's no profit incentive to go back to stone milling, long fermentation, and heritage grains. Those methods are slow, expensive, they don't scale. Modern bread is cheap and abundant because it's made fast with subsidized commodity wheat and shelf-stable additives. The system is optimized for volume and profit, not nutrition. That's not going to change from the top down, but it can change from the bottom up. Every time you buy real bread, you support a baker who's doing it right. Every time you choose heritage grain, you support farmers growing something better. Every time you learn to bake your own, you take control of what goes into your body. This isn't about returning to medieval life. It's about reclaiming knowledge that worked and applying it in a modern context. Bread has sustained humanity for thousands of years. It powered empires, it built cathedrals, it carried people through famine, war, and plague. It wasn't a villain, it was survival. What changed wasn't your body, it was the bread. And now that you know that, now that you understand what was stripped away, what was added, and why it matters, you have a choice. You can keep eating industrial bread and accept the consequences, or you can seek out the real thing. Heritage grains, stone-milled flour, long fermentation, bread that's made the way it used to be made, because that's the way that works. It's not as convenient, it's not as cheap, but it's food. real, recognizable human food, and that's worth something. The bread that built the world is still here. You just have to know where to look. So what's your take? Have you noticed a difference when you eat real bread versus the supermarket kind? Have you cut bread out entirely, or are you one of the few still eating it without issue? Drop a comment. I want to hear your story. And if this made you see bread or food in general differently, do me a favor. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Maybe someone who is still blaming their body for what the food industry did. Subscribe to this channel if you want more of this, because bread is just the beginning. There's a lot more we've been lied to about. See you in the next one. Stay tuned.